Freak athletes are some of the most amazing and perplexing people on this planet. Whilst we know that so much of their ability comes from just sheer dedication and intelligence in their training, some things are an absolute mystery. Now I'm speaking here specifically around athletes that can hold massive weights and bend their spine to its absolute range of motion without snapping it. To understand why this is such a mystery, we need to back up a little bit to the anatomy and biomechanics of that motion. So every time a back muscle activates, it exerts some level of compressional force on the spine. Now that compression force, if it's high enough, can straight up just break something in the spine, whether there was an injury present or not before it. Now that's pretty well known, and that's why if somebody does have an injury, especially at some sort of compressional intolerance, we need to find something that's low enough load that they can do to sort of develop their stability and sort of rehab their spine. But ultimately there's always going to be some level of compression. But it actually gets way more extreme if we enter something like flexion, which is a forward bend in the context of the spine. In fact, the greatest increase in pressure, particularly in the nucleus of the disc, which is just the inner portion of the thing in between the vertebra, is at its greatest during flexion. And that degree of compression is directly proportional to the degree of flexion, so the angle that they're at, and also the weight that they're carrying. So if we take somebody who's in a Jefferson curl holding weight, we are taking somebody at the utmost extreme of their range of motion and with large weight, and they should be breaking their spine, but somehow not everybody does. The confusing point is that at about 90% of the flexion range of motion, the back muscles turn off. So all of the load should be transferred to the ligaments and other supporting structures, which is very confusing because we know that during flexion, the failure point for those ligaments is about 140 to 185 Newton meters, which is just a measure of force, not too important. But the point being, they should be snapping because the force generated in that motion is way higher than that. Moreover, when you actually come out of full flexion, the activation in your erector spinae muscles is way, way higher. And interestingly, it's actually the upper portion of your erector spine. So it goes all the way sort of up your spine. And I thought that the lower portion would have contributed to extension, but it seems the upper portion is. But that's just a tangent anyway. But again, the point standing, how is somebody bearing this level of compression? But this is the really perplexing point, is that it seems that the back might be contributing passively, even though it turns off at this point. And the truth is, they don't know why this works. There's so many hypotheses that have been put forward, tested, refuted. Nobody knows. It seems that there is some sort of flaw in the anatomical or biomechanical understanding of how the spine works, because we shouldn't be able to do it with our current understanding, and yet some individuals can do it without injury. It even gets worse, which is that if you're in full flexion and you come into extension, you get a deeper activation of your erector spinae muscles, which are these deep muscles sort of along the spine. Very important set of muscles, but again, you're increasing more muscle activation, you're increasing more compression. Why isn't something going wrong? For those of you who don't know, I've been learning all of this as a part of my 50 Days to Rebuild challenge, where I read 50 pages of a physio/exercise book and do 50 minutes of exercise in a day in attempts to rehab myself. And most of this has come from Nikolai Bogdach, who wrote a book on the clinical anatomy of the lumbar spine. Moving on to the exercise portion of things, I'll look at the bird dog, which is just something that I do for my core stability. I still can't introduce both arm and leg at the same time without getting this hyperextension at my spine, but it's feeling okay doing one at a time. Also, really driving out laterally with my shoulder seems to be helping that external rotation, and it does feel a bit better. With the side plank, because I've been having knee pain, I've just very briefly regressed it back to my knees. And something that I've tried before and never really had much success with is a side plank clamshell. It always felt a bit janky, but I did it today and it was actually quite good. I don't know if this is because I've not been hammering my knees so much, that it's a little easier, but I'm happy with that. As I showed you yesterday, I've been doing some wrist movements and they've been going well, and I've sort of noticed that it's best if I start with the radial movement, so moving like your thumb towards your forearm. It seems that if I start there, things are less cracky with the other movements. And because I've been having this wrist issue, but I'm also a little concerned that things are stemming from like my shoulder, I've been doing some work on these different muscles in the area. So for example, I've been working on my biceps, which for the most part feels good, but there does feel like some level of pinching in the elbow, so I need to sort of iron that out. And also just been doing some general external rotation work, and overall it feels pretty good. And yeah, that about wraps it up for day 37. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.